G'day guys, this is Alex from the TryPod and welcome once again to another episode of Punting 101. Today I'm going to try something a little bit differently. Well, let's see how this works anyway, but I'll be going through our TryPod Power Ratings and how to understand them, what they mean, and how you can use them to your advantage. So first things first, make sure you're in our app. Just download the TryPod app, TryPod. You can download that one in the App Store or Google Play for free. That's where we're going to be posting all our tips, and that's where you'll get a push notification the second that we post. We've done some more tests and done another upgrade to both the iOS and Android apps. So every single person in the app, if you have your settings on, you should receive a push notification within 2 to 3 minutes of us posting, which is even better than Facebook half the time. So make sure you're in there. Make sure you're in our group, TryPod Punters Tips Forum. That is in. You can find a link to that in the description to this video. It's going to be a short one today, and sadly, this will be the last Punting 101 that we'll probably do for a little while now. Obviously, with NRL season coming up next week, we're going to be doing 2 NRL pods per week on Wednesday and Sunday, 6 p.m. Queensland time. So we figured that we'll probably stop the Punting 101s on the Friday just throughout the season and probably roll into some more Punting 101 once the NRL season is over. But yeah, so today, if you can kind of see what's going on in the screen here, this isn't this year's power ratings. We haven't deep dived and done our power ratings for this year yet. But this is our power ratings for round 24 of last year's season. And a lot of you might look at this and go, what the fuck is going on? There's a lot of numbers, a lot of green, a lot of red, whatever. And sometimes they're a little bit hard to understand, especially for new punters and that kind of thing as well, that haven't seen, power ratings done before. So today I'm just going to go through the basics of it, what the numbers mean, how you can decipher it, how you can understand it, and then how you can compare it to the bookie odds in order to gauge whether you've got a good bet on your hands or not. So first of all, what do the numbers mean? So basically, as you can see here, we've got 1 to 16. The Roosters are at 10.5. That is their power rating. And let's say, for example, the Bulldogs are at 0. The Bulldogs and the Eels are at 0. So these are our power ratings. We do a full deep dive every single week, and we update these throughout the season. So basically, what those two numbers mean, Roosters 10.5 and let's say Bulldogs 0. If those two teams were to play on a neutral venue, in our eyes, our power ratings say that the Roosters should be 10.5 point favourites or minus 10.5 points. Similarly, you can do that with any of the teams. Let's say if the Roosters were playing the Tigers are 10.5, the Tigers are 4.5. So you take the difference between those two numbers, which would be 6, and so the Roosters should be favoured by 6 points on a neutral venue in our eyes. So then, you've got that one pretty much down pat. So for example, if the Sharks played the Broncos on a neutral venue, the Sharks are on 8, the Broncos are 7 in our power ratings. We think that the Sharks should be favoured by 1 point on a neutral venue. Now, then you have to do some adjustments as well. You have to adjust for home field, and we've got that on the side there, explaining a little bit about home field. But generally in the NRL, home field's worth about 2.5 points. That's a general gauge for how you would do something like that. So let's say, for example, we'll take the example with the Sharks and the Broncos once again. So let's say the Sharks were playing the Broncos at home. The difference between those two teams is 1, but then you tack on 2.5 points for the Sharks being at home, and the Sharks should be favoured by 3.5 points. Now, not all home grounds are created equal. We've discussed this throughout last season as well. But just as a rough guide, 2.5 is the number you should use. But we would say that there are certain home fields that are worth a lot more than others. For example, the Broncos tend to have one of the stronger home fields in the NRL. And when we're adjusting for a Broncos at home, we usually add 3.5 to 4.5 points. 3.5 to 4 points on top of that Broncos spread. Similar to the Storm, they generally have a very strong home field advantage. We'd probably make the Storm 3.5 points. On the flip side, you have some very weak home fields. like the Titans, that kind of thing. The Knights have been historically, but now that they've got a decent team, we say that the Knights are probably one of the stronger home fields in the comp, and we probably give the Knights something like 3 points for a home field advantage. Another thing to kind of remember is obviously, travel and that kind of thing. Like there's lots of teams in Sydney, based in Sydney, obviously, and if you have two Sydney teams playing each other, we would say that's almost a wash in terms of home field. I probably think it's worth about 1 point. I think Jacob would probably agree or say it's worth even less points. So if you get two Sydney teams playing each other, you wouldn't adjust as much. So you might add 1 point for home field instead of 2.5. So then you get your basic idea of what we think the line should be. Now, obviously, then you make various adjustments from there. I mean, this is the base that you work on. And then, obviously, you make some adjustments from there. We bring these power ratings out earlier in the week. But after we bring those out, there might be late personnel changes, late injuries, late scratchings, that sort of thing. So from there, you have to adjust. If someone's gets ruled out late, you have to change that. You have to adjust. You obviously adjust for situational spots. If a team's playing like their third road game in a row, if they've just played a grueling extra time game, it might be in a letdown spot, all those sorts of other things, then you add into that. And then you come up with what you think the line should be, right? So then from there, you've got an idea of what you think the line should be in all 8 games of the round, right? And you can take those numbers, then you compare them to the bookie numbers. So let's say, for example, I'll use the Sharks-Broncos example again, right? So you got the Sharks hosting the Broncos, for example. The Sharks are 1 point better in our power ratings. You tack on 2.5 points for home field. Let's say there's no situational edge. Let's say there's no late personnel changes. And the Sharks, we think, should be favoured by 3.5 points. What if we go to the bookies? We look at all our bookies, and they've got the Sharks favoured by right around 3.5 points. Well, what does that mean? It means that you don't really think that you have an edge there. The bookies probably have that game right. And if there's no difference between your power ratings after you've done all your research and done all your adjustments, if there's no difference between your number and the bookie number, probably means you shouldn't bet that game. There's just no value there. But let's say you go and look at the bookies, and they've got the Sharks and Broncos at Pick'em, $1.90 each to win. Then you've got a 3.5 point difference between your power ratings and the bookies. And that means you probably should pull the trigger on the Sharks in that game. I would say, we're looking for at least a 1 point disparity in a power ratings to a bookie ratings before we decide to jump on a bet. But once the NRL, sometimes you can find some value there, and sometimes last year we even had discrepancies of like 3-4 points between our power ratings and the bookie ratings, and we always jumped on those games and generally did very well with them. So yeah, look, if the numbers match up, you probably should leave the game alone. If you don't match up, then you probably should bet it. And likewise, it could help you stay away from a side as well. Let's say if you really liked the Broncos playing the Sharks, but our power ratings somehow say that the Sharks, should be favoured by 3.5 points, but you're not getting that sort of value from the bookies. It could help you off making a bad bet as well. So that's the general gist of it. I mean, this isn't the be-all and end-all, but it's a good place to start, and it's where we always start when we're looking at plays for the week in the NRL. Always start with the power ratings, make adjustments for personnel, situational spots, and whatever else we have to, whether there's inclement weather, all that sort of thing. And then once you have your number, you can confidently go and look on the bookies and see if there's any discrepancies there, and then bet from there. Yeah, that'll pretty much do it, guys. We will be releasing these power ratings throughout the year this year, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, you can always just screenshot the photo and kind of, keep that on your phone somewhere ready to go. So once you're looking through the games and doing your research, you can always come back to these power ratings and use them as a base. I think they got us onto, last year was the first year that we did it, but they got us onto a lot of value last year, that's for sure. So yeah, this is where you should start and then make adjustments from there. But if you have any questions, as always, with the power ratings or with anything else, obviously feel free to hit us up. either in the TryPod app or in the group or on this page or wherever you want to. So yeah, keep that in mind, guys. That should be a good little tool for you guys to use throughout the season. And yeah, that'll pretty much do it. We will see you guys on Wednesday, 6 p.m. On NRL Zero Fucks Given, and we'll be doing a full breakdown of the round 1 matchups and probably giving out some best bets as well. So stay tuned for that one, guys, and I'll see you then.